Everyone, thank you so much. There we go, got it. Thank you so much for joining us today. On behalf of Amplify Clearwater, I am Amanda Payne, President and CEO of that organization. And joining us, you can see our friends from all around Pinellas County. We have Chris Steinacher and his team at the St. Pete Chamber who helped organize this meeting together today for us. So thank you, Chris, to you and your team. Roger, everything you do for the hospitality industry and continue to do, thank you for that. We are also partners with the Tampa Bay Beaches Chamber in this and the Treasure Island Madeira Beach Chamber. Visit St. Pete Clearwater. Kristen and Steve, thank you so much for joining us today. And the FRLA is also a partner in this. And if I'm missing you on this call at the moment, please forgive me. But we're so happy to be a partner with you collectively and working to address the issues that our hospitality industry faces countywide. So I am excited to welcome you to this call today. Just a little bit of housekeeping before I turn it over to Roger and Christina to kind of recap where we've been and where we might be headed. We ask that everybody stay muted, but along the way, I'm sure you'll have questions that you'll want answered. Please feel free to go ahead and ask those questions in the chat box. And as we go along, we will pause at a certain point for you to be able to, for those questions to be able to be addressed. So please don't hold back. Feel free to go ahead and ask them. Let's see, there we go. Please feel free to go ahead and ask them as we go through the program, and don't wait until the end. So we will pause for Q&A. Thank you again so much for joining us. And Roger and Christina, I'll let you take it from here.
Sure. Well, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Christina Osborne. I'm the Executive Vice President with Amplify Clearwater. I have the pleasure of working with Amanda and the rest of our team up here in North County. So it's so nice to see so many familiar faces and a lot of new ones as well. As she shared, the purpose of our time together is just to talk about what the issues are facing our industry. Let's brainstorm together. Let's share ideas and best practices. And let's realize we're not alone. What's happening in North County is happening in South County. There's quite a bit happening statewide and nationally. So I do think there's a bit of comfort in recognizing where these trends lie. And then just, again, exploring some best practices and working collectively, right? Our visitors don't see city limits and county lines. So make sure we're producing the best visitor experience possible. Just to recap, for those of you unable to join us on the last one, this is a quarterly forum. This is the second, I believe, of many to come of this partnership, which is fantastic. The last time we all gathered together, we were in a very different place than we are today, good and bad, right? I think we have all shared that the face of our visitor has looked quite a bit different coming out of the pandemic and recognizing all that was needed to reopen safely. And then we're finding ourselves with some new challenges, right? Some staffing challenges. How do we make sure we meet the new demand? We were crying we had nobody through our doors. And now that we have so many, how do we keep up and make sure that we keep that stellar service and warm hospitality that we're all known for in Pinellas County? Food costs, minimum wage increases, and as I'm sure you've seen, the numbers of cases are continuing to grow when it does relate to COVID. So while we were hoping we'd be out of the woods, we may or may not be. So what does the future look like for all of that? So a lot of new headwinds that we're experiencing as well. So I'm going to turn it over to Roger to dive in a little bit more deeply on some of those specifics and kind of set the stage for figuring out where we are and where we're headed.
Thank you, Christina. I'm Roger Curlin. I am the co-founder of the Pinellas Independent Hospitality Forum, along with Miguel Miranda. And really over the last decade, I've worked with hundreds of local restaurants and bars on a variety of hospitality-related projects. And in speaking with them currently, the headwinds we discussed in April, well, they still exist, but some are extra urgent now. And throughout the call, as Christina said, we're going to be talking about solutions and things we've got coming to really help that. So the number one is staffing. There still is a inventory problem. It's most acute in the back of the house, secondarily in the front of the house, and then at the third level at the management level. So we're roughly somewhere in the mid 20s to 30,000 jobs shy of where we were in 2019 as an industry. And with the consumer demand recently beating those 2019 numbers, although we have seen demand recently dip in the last few weeks. As an industry, we're operating at approximately 80% of where we could have fully staffed. So that's a really big number to keep in mind, because with the average profitability in that 3 to 5% range, if we're only operating at 80%, that's not a good thing. It also doesn't appear we're going to get many of those that completely left the industry back. Unemployment's around 1% higher locally, give or take a bit, than before COVID. So that's really only about 6,000 people that are unemployed different than pre-COVID. So that's just a state of where we're at with staffing. Staff poaching has become a systematic problem across the board, where it's just getting stolen from one place to another. The second headwind is burnout. So it's really a spinoff of the staffing headwind, but we're seeing emotional and physical burnout, not only with staff and management, but also ownership. It's really a constant battle in the industry against the headwinds, and it's really causing cracks in many otherwise stable restaurant groups. And there's a danger that even a few members of a team leaving really destabilizes some of these restaurants and some of these restaurants groups. And when somebody leaves, they're difficult to replace because they're taking knowledge, skills, understanding with them, and a cascade of inefficiencies happens. So that burnout is really a challenge for us. And then we also see the owners very vulnerable. And I've seen what we call paralysis, where the owners they're paralyzed because of everything that's come at them and the burnout that goes with it. As Christina mentioned, the rising costs were an issue back in April, but the challenge is now they've continued to rise until now. So we've had another 3.5 months of rising costs, and it's really difficult to pass those along to the consumer sometimes. So the biggest two cost challenges, cost of goods and increase in wages. We have seen a greater increase in wages in the hospitality industry in these last 6 months than we ever have before in the history of the industry from a percentage standpoint. And from a cost of goods standpoint, certain items like pork and soy are predicted to plateau and perhaps maybe shrink, but everything else is just continuing to climb. So that's a real challenge. The October tipped wage minimum goes up 24%. Right now it's $5.63. It's going up to $6.98. So that could mean as much as a 8% increase in cost of doing business just from wages alone for restaurants that are very heavy on front of house. The fourth headwind, consumer agitation. So it's a mix of these other headwinds. The consumer experience has clearly dropped in the hospitality space. And so sometimes it's long waits, incorrect orders, poor staffing, inconsistent food quality, stressful atmosphere that's created these unhappy customers. And the key danger of this headwind is you could lose the loyalty of these customers and really create a poor, what I call a digital review online. And so inefficiencies and those things we talked about as well. Unpredictability. We're finishing up our final couple of headwinds here. I've spoken to numerous owners that are seeing large swings and surges and dips in their business. And that's really difficult to not only buy food for, staff for, et cetera. So these unpredictable swings are really causing some issues in many of our businesses. The weather, red tide, government policies, new tourism patterns, just all of these things are lending to that challenge. The final two, real quick, skill set gap. So the inefficiencies that are caused by this turnover in the industry and folks that are not ready to do particular jobs are causing a headwind, and then the overbuild. I think we can all pretty much pick up any of our local media, and it's saturated with new places opening, new places opening, new places opening. We actually have more dining seats now than we did pre-COVID. So that's a real challenge. So that's the set of headwinds that we're looking at. We've got a lot of challenges ahead, but as a team, I feel like we can address a lot of these. Christina, back to you.
Awesome, Roger. Thanks for digging in. Yeah, a lot of challenges that we're facing, but it's not all doom and gloom, right? We're so excited that we're getting our visitors back. So the outline of how our time is going to go together today is that we are going to jump in and talk a little bit about what the current outlook looks like for our hospitality industry, give you some great, exciting numbers, tell you a little bit about what we being the collective of the chambers and the Independent Hospitality Alliance have done since our last meeting with what feedback you shared with us to help address some of the challenges that we're facing from a higher level there and how you can get involved. Talk about some of the trends that are coming up and just give you the tools and resources to move forward with those, and then ultimately what happens next. We want to use this time to hear from you, and as the Chamber of Commerce does, help create collective and collaborative solutions to address them. So to jump in, Steve is going to be joining us here from Visit St. Pete Clearwater to give us a little rundown on how the hospitality industry is looking, give us some numbers, some data. Got some good news for us today, Steve?
I do, and thank you so much for including me in today's conversation. It's interesting. In the last three days, work days, I've given like 3 presentations, all with numbers. So got some good news that I want to share. So let me get my screen up and going. And there we go. There we go. And all right, now can you see my screen? All right, awesome. All right, just want to hit some highlights. Looking at first lodging, what we're seeing, and this is through the end of June, looking at fiscal year to date, so October through June 30th. First 2 numbers are hotel motel occupancy and then ADR, which is rate. The second 2 is vacation rental occupancy and ADR. So fiscal year to date, hotel wise, compared to 2019, we are down roughly about, about 7% comparably, but our rate is even. And again, this takes into October, November, December of last year, because certainly that occupancy has really blossomed starting in mid-March. On the ADR, we're flat with 2019. Where we've seen the biggest gains is in vacation rentals, and up over 2019, there's a significant difference between 71% and 61%. And even on the rate aspect, it is way up, 202 per night over 171. I did provide data at the bottom, which does look at inland hotels versus the beach hotels. And again, you could look at the occupancy, and we only have this for 21 and 20. So I didn't put 20 in there. It's no use comparing against that, because we know what happened in 20, even though we were starting to recover at that point. Okay. And again, this is hotel motel occupancy. The black line is 2021. The blue is 2019. Orange is the bad year. And you can see in March is when we started catching up with 2019. And since then, we have consistently been better than 2019. We did see a little bit of a downturn in the month of July, but the fact that we had, that was the beginning of red tide, but as well, you had Elsa in there, but we're still above that 2019 number. And that was hotels only. This looks at occupancy January through July, and this vacation rentals, and you can see by month. Blue is the 2021. The gray is 2019, and the orange is 2020. So you can see we are way up over 2019 on a month-over-month basis. The light blue is looking at the pace going forward. So for August, September, October, November, December. And in this case, you can see even in August, we're going to be ahead of where we were August and September, and even October. November and December, we're dropping below. But again, look at our booking window and our pace. I can understand where that would be lower than 2019. In terms of our out-of-state audiences and where they're coming from, we're starting to see some of our normal markets return. If you look at Fly, and this is for the fiscal year, so since October, Chicago, New York, Detroit, Philly, and Boston make up the top 5 for flying. For driving, Atlanta, New York, Chicago, Indy, and Detroit. Keep in mind, in both well, in both of these, the in-state market of Orlando, Tampa, and Miami always make up the top three. So again, those are our top 10 markets. When we look at our top 20, again, we're seeing some of the same markets that we've seen in previous years. This is a look at the visitor profile, and this is for Q1 of 2021. We'll actually have Q2, which will go April, May, June, here roughly in about next 30 to 45 days. You normally will see the first number is 2019, and the darker would be 2021. So look at average time between time of decision to visit and arrival. You can see the big difference here. The average daily spend, and when you look at Q19, it was $222 a day. In Q21, it was $268. And of course, you see what 2020 was like. Party size is a little bit smaller than it was in 2019. I think the big drop that we saw was in the average number of nights or days in the market. So the average number of nights was 3.4 in 2019, where it's 2.5 currently. The percent of those that are staying overnight is lower, which means more of a day trip audience. What I did find interesting is going through and looking at what the average income is, household income, 111,000 for Q1 of 21 compared to 103,000 in fiscal year, or I'm sorry, in 2019. Looking ahead just real quickly, through Travel Click, we're able to look at leisure room nights and group committed room nights, August through December. Currently looking at August, way up on the leisure side, which is to be expected. And this was pulled as of last week, so some of these numbers will start to change. And then the same on the group room night. So again, we've got some good business on the books, and again, with the shortened booking window, we should see those start to rise here in the coming months. Looking at the forecast on occupancy, and again, the numbers here actually was a forecast that provided at the beginning of the year. And really, we've blown through a lot of these numbers, and this is overall. So this would be both hotel, motel, as well as vacation rentals. But again, keeping with 2019 numbers through the end of the calendar year. And then looking at the number of visitors, again, lower than we were in 2019, but higher than we are in 2020. And the black line represents 21. We should be, we had 15 million visitors in 2019. And I think we're going to be around 14 million visitors total in 2021. So that is the one thing I did want to bring up, and it really isn't in here, is that we're, again, as we're watching two different things, one being red tide, but also resurgence of COVID, how is that impacting business? On the red tide side, looking at it strictly from a lodging perspective, we have not seen a big decline in reservations. So when we look at key data for vacation rentals, we go through and we see it's a normal cancellation. So it's not above what we've seen in 2019. It's not below. It's following its normal pattern. What we have heard from some lodging is the guests will check in, but then cut short their stay. Especially if they find where they're at, there tends to be more of a issue with red tide. COVID, that one is now rearing its head. I know on the group side, we have some folks that are inquiring about what is going on, and they are wondering, do they need to postpone their meeting or their conference? And some of those calls that we've had have been for September, October pieces of business. We're actually getting together as a team tomorrow just to talk about the messaging, because again, where we were last year and where we are today is completely different. Because we were able to say, hey, we have a mask policy or we have all these things. Well, we don't have that now. So what can we do to help alleviate any concern a visitor may have, so that we don't see a downward spiral in folks visiting? At the same time, be able to convey what is happening here. So you have that element. The second part is we continue to keep people updated on what's happening with red tide. Beachesupdate.com provides the information, everything from, was there irritation with respiratory irritation with the air, is there dead fish, just basically trying to give as much information as possible to any visitor, whether I'm coming from Chicago, Orlando, or Tampa, to go through and give them. So look for us to have some type of message around red COVID, or if I can come up with a better name, how to combine the two, we'll go through and do that. This is almost getting ridiculous having to talk about all this, because then the real issue is everything Roger and Christina mentioned earlier, the different headwinds that are out there. But that's a quick update of what we're seeing from the tourism side.
Awesome, Steve. Thank you so much. I'm such a data nerd, so I always love when you or Leroy share all those numbers and the information. As a reminder, you guys are welcome to jump in the chat if you have any questions for Steve. You addressed my top two concerns, which I'm sure are shared by many, and that is the impressions of red tide and COVID. We are grateful that we're seeing some changes, some positive, some negative as it relates to red tide. So we'll just have to continue to monitor what that looks like. But I am glad to hear that it's not persuading certain decisions from our partners. I am curious, as we're waiting to see if anybody else has any questions, your thoughts on some of the trends or shifts that we've seen over the last year related to COVID and just kind of the change in our visitor perspective. What do you think is going to stick, and what do you think is going to return back to normal? What are your predictions?
I laugh because it's one of those, gosh, in fact, this weekend we traveled up to Tallahassee to help our kids do some stuff. And, in the hotel we were at, no housekeeping until, from the time you started, but if you needed something. So has that become the new normal? Coming back home, wanted to stop and get something to drink, eat, 4 places actually were drive-through only, no lobby service, again, due to staffing. And so does that become, the new normal? I think the other part is, and Roger, I think you hit upon it, and I've loved how you said consumer agitation. I think you have a consumer out there that has money, that wants a certain experience, and their mind is still in 2019, and today is 2021. And those of us in the industry realize what's happening. We realize we've got to be more patient, that, basically between wait staff to your dinner coming out, enough people helping in a shop if you're out shopping, whatever it might be. And so I think it's going to be this adjustment that people are going to have to make when they realize, okay, unless I'm at a 6-diamond hotel, I'm going to have hourly room service. That's not going to be the standard anymore. And so it's getting used to that. And I think the other aspect of it is, more from the consumer, again, of demands of their time and their energy. And I think that translates to that vacation time as well. And then you have all this pent up demand wanting to escape from wherever they're at and everything else that goes with it. And so they don't want to see it where they're at. So I think it's all these things combined that just, there's nothing we can give them to drink or take that's going to help ease that. I think what it's going to be, it's going to have to coach people that patience is now a virtue that we all are going to have to adapt to.
Great predictions there, Steve. I appreciate that. We had a question from Miguel. How is inflation playing a part in increased revenue numbers? And do we see this to be an issue in respect to travel?
Based on some data that are heard at the national level, with costs going up, I don't think you're going to see the consumer change because their costs are going up no matter what. Right now, I think people have saved money because they didn't travel for a year or they didn't do certain things. And so they have the funds to go through and do that. I don't see them all of a sudden saying, whoops, I'm not gonna travel. I think they're gonna want to do that. I do think it'll be interesting to see at what price point certain things don't happen. And again, but that's going to be across all goods and services. At what point is I'm going to make this up, you guys, is a beer not worth $15? It's a $6 beer. What makes up a dinner in terms of a cost in their mind? So again, it's everything that goes into that of what they're going to go through and spend. But I think right now the savings bank for a lot of people is pretty strong. And so they want to get out and they want to experience things, but what is it going to look like to them?
Excellent, thank you. All right, well, everybody, just as a reminder, if you have additional questions for Steve, welcome to drop them in the chat. If he has to exit, I'll make sure that those get to him and we'll get you those answers. Steve, thank you. Thank you for your time. Oh, Chris, you have a question? You're muted there.
Thank you. I love this room. I love Zoom rooms. Hey, Steve, thank you again and great job on all the numbers. I'm very appreciative of the way you guys were tracking everything for us. So very helpful to us. My question to you is your current marketing. I know you're going tomorrow into brainstorming like what the messaging should be. Are you currently messaging things about our market right now? Like, are we live anywhere with a message? And I'm just curious on that. What are we saying right now about ourselves?
That we have emerald green waters that tinted a little bit red. I'm kidding. No, we still have messaging out there. I mean, we have not stopped our advertising. I was going to say,
is it the Rise to Shine stuff or no? Or did we get it? Okay.
Yeah. Now, that's one of the things I want to talk about is, do we need to re-up that? So as an example, do we need to have a message that takes that Rise to Shine message and revamps it to say, something along this line that, if, we encourage you while, visiting, indoor places that are with people you don't know to wear a mask. But while you're enjoying our 35-mile of beaches, you don't need a mask. A creative way to go through and do that. The second part is we are really pushing, the message of also the activities that you can do that aren't on the beach. So, if you need to go to a museum, you want to go shopping, you want to go out to more of the inland parks, there's biking, there's other things that you can do that don't have to be on the beach. Also, the messaging of checking the website for the beachesupdate.com, so that, you're checking your beach. I mean, someone I talked to today said at their office on the beach, they, definitely had the irritation. But then they go 6 blocks north where they live, they can't see, they can't tell anything. And so it's not the county as a whole, it's not one beach, it's you really have to check all that. But I think the other thing is to let people know there's other things you can do. So our messaging, social, real, traditional media, again, we're still keeping that messaging going.
Yeah. So thank you. And I do agree that you might have something there with that Rise to Shine as it was discussing about consumer agitation and patience. That seems to ride in that same kind of mantra that you guys had set out with the artwork and everything about this is going to be a different experience here, but here we're going to help you learn how to have the experience here. And so I think you just offered all that. So I think there is some importance in helping our visitors understand what kind of experience we're trying to create for everybody.
Yep.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Steve. You're awesome. And I think that by the time we finish this meeting, we should give you a new name for that COVID red tide surge thing. I think with as many creative people and we have here, Christine, I would say the chamber would give out a gift card at the visitor center for anybody who can come up with the right name for Steve to use. So let's see what kind of creativity we have in there. If you mix COVID and red tide together, what do you get? So
what we want to avoid is adding cane to that. So we don't want to call it red COVID cane.
Truth.
All right. See, so you already know what you don't want to call it, but let's get
Yeah.
to where we.
Yeah, move over Sharknado. Well, money's
Yeah.
on the line. Chris has put that up. We've got gift certificates, so get that brain working. Excellent points. Well, Steve, to you and Kristen and the entire team at VSBC, thank you for all that you've done to navigate through all of this, to market a destination when travel was restricted, and just to keep a good name out there for all of us. So we really appreciate all your hard work.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for the time today. Again, feel free to enter any questions. Michelle wants to encourage from PIE Airport that you keep shining. So carry that message forward with your Rise to Shine campaign. We can keep shining. All right, next up, we would like to welcome Kevin from the Economic Development Office. Kevin, give us a little rundown on kind of what we're seeing on the economic development side of things.
Sure. Can everybody hear me okay? I was having some serious technical difficulties getting in. Sorry about that. Thanks for having me here today. I'm really excited to share some of what's going on with our economic development department at the county. As all of you know, with Mike Meidell's departure back in April, there was a big hole left in our organization, and we've been working to identify who's going to fill that position in the future. And we're going to be interviewing some finalists this week, and then trying to get our super finalists, the last 4 or 5, to come into town towards the end of August to meet with us. We've got a team of people who are going to be doing the interviews from across the county. We're going to have them meet with our industry council, and we're going to have them meet with staff and get some feedback before we make that final selection. But our hope is to have somebody identified by the end of the month, make an offer, and get them on board as soon as possible. So we're really excited about that. For those of you who are involved with economic development, there's a lot of changes afoot within the county and what we're doing. We've gone out to our partners, and instead of having the quarterly meeting with our partners, we've asked them to meet with us monthly, but in their locations and in subsets that represent special interests. Like the beach communities are all getting together, the North County communities are getting together, the large cities are getting together, and we're talking about issues that pertain to those particular groups rather than lumping everybody into one big group. And we found it's been very, very helpful. We're getting a lot of good feedback from them about the programs that they're putting on to attract businesses in their community, to grow their own businesses, to help people find new space, to help them find additional staff. And it's just tremendous amount of assistance from each other in the community, which I'm really happy to see. At our last industry council meeting, I challenged them. We have about 44 members out of the potential 100 that we have on the board. And so my challenge to them was who needs to be at the table to help us really do a good job with creating a very strong and active board that will give guidance to the BCC about economic development within the county. And so that's the big project with the industry council, is to find new members to bring to the table to really enrich that whole program. One of the other things that we've been working on is, you've probably seen the Penny for Pinellas program for the employment sites. We had 3 projects that we put through at the last commission meeting, and we're going to move forward with doing the due diligence around the financing for that. But all 3 projects look strong. 2 of them are spec buildings that would bring some much needed industrial space with high ceilings and plenty of footprint that could be a place for our companies to grow into, or for new companies to come into town. So we're very excited about that. And one of the projects is a secure compartmentalized information facility, so that people who are doing Department of Defense contracts can review the materials within a secure facility right here in the county without having to go up to Washington, D.C. or something like that. Ever since MacDill Air Force Base closed theirs, there's been nowhere local for people to go. And so we're super excited about that as well. And lastly, we had gone to the community, a group of folks, to talk to us about governance for the county's economic development, and got a lot of great feedback. Our consultant has finished their report. I'm going to go before the BCC on September 2nd and provide them an update. And basically what we're going to recommend is that we move forward over the next 2 years with a program to do some analysis about what the best structure is within the county. We've got a lot of existing things, and how can we build something where we're all working together, we're speaking one voice, we're joining into the regional communication. We're still an active partner with Global Tampa Bay, and that's Pasco County and the Tampa Bay EDC, who are our partners on that, so that we're working together to market the area as a whole, globally, but also across the United States. Before we were doing that on our own, but now we're looking to do that together. So it's not only the foreign direct investment, but it's also investment from elsewhere in the United States. So those are the major programs and things that are going on with economic development. A lot of moving parts, a lot of interesting stuff, and we're really excited as a team about the future.
Well, that's fantastic, Kevin. Thank you so much for joining us and giving us that update, for serving in the role in that capacity while the search is taking place. And then just ultimately for coupling with all of the people in this room, that once you've had a chance to visit and you fall in love the way that we all did, that you can move your business and your family here and make it a better place for all of us to live. So thank you for all your hard work. We really appreciate your time today.
Oh, no problem at all. And if there's any questions, I'd be glad to answer.
Excellent. Well, if there's nothing specific at this moment, please feel free to drop it in the chat. And I'll make sure that that does get to Kevin. And then Jonathan, I did see yours. So don't worry, that is actually a great lead in for our next topic. So thank you again, Kevin, for taking the time. We really do appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
Great. And so then, yeah, Jonathan's question is actually a great transition. Jonathan is asking, any strategies in place being talked about to address the staffing issues for both the front of the house and the back of the house? So we heard you loud and clear. Visitors are trickling back in and pouring back in, actually. And now we have to make sure we have the staff to keep up. The number of available jobs exceeds the number of people available to work in them. So what are we doing about it, Roger?
Thank you so much, Christine. Thank you also for that question. So just want to give a reminder of the 5 main components of overcoming our staffing challenges now. So the first is finding staff that are new to the industry. So if we're not going to be bringing those prior folks back, let's find some new folks to bring into the industry. The second is making operational changes at our locations that reduce the need for staff. The third is making technology investments that enhance the staff productivity and efficiency. The fourth is investment in training that enhances that efficiency, effectiveness, and work enjoyment for the employees. And then the fifth is creating work cultures that attract employees. So those are the 5 keys on the things we can work on now as a community. And I want to kind of give a bonus number 6 is the advocating for affordable housing and accessible transportation. Really, really critical part of this formula as we dig out of our challenge. So I want to talk briefly about the Hospitality Tree website that is coming. It's in final beta stage and we expect a September launch. And what this website is going to be is a one-stop shop for all things hospitality for Pinellas County. So you don't have to hunt and peck throughout the internet. It's all going to be there for us. And as we find new opportunities, new resources, we're going to add it underneath that umbrella. Some of the major components of the website is going to be local hospitality job boards, educational opportunities, employee social media connections, influencers/media, housing and transport information, advocacy, and owner resources. So it's going to be a very, very comprehensive website, great mobile. I've been testing it and we're really close to launching that. Some additional highlights that we're working on underneath that is a potential roommate matching service with affordable housing. If we can create a better way to match people in hospitality up as roommates, that's a great way for folks to get housing locally. The other thing is promoting the carpooling, the ride matching that's already there with T-BARTA, but to be a good resource on that. Other
Is it just me or did Roger pause for everybody there?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
Still a little bouncy.
Yep. Oh goodness.
Am
Okay.
I free yet? Am I free?
There you are, Roger. There you
Okay.
are. I think the last thing we heard was roommate matching service.
Okay, my apologies. The computer says I'm unstable. So besides the roommate matching service, also focusing on T-BARTA's carpooling system. It's there, but it's in a chicken and egg issue where we need to get a lot of people using it for it to be a good resource. And then finally, Shift Pixie is we're in talks with them about putting together an ecosystem where what they do is they combine hundreds of operators and thousands of part-time workers in a particular industry, in this case hospitality, that all of our local businesses can pull off of. And so that's those are some additional coming soon that we're excited about. Real quick on the boot camps. So we're really looking at 4 levels of training to add for our Pinellas County hospitality industry. The first is leadership level, and that's the hospitality leadership program. And David O'Neil is going to speak to that in a few minutes. The next camp, so that's a 5-day training for those new to the industry. We expect an early fall launch for that. There's also a front of the house accelerator. That's a 2.5-day training for those already in the industry. Expect an early fall launch for that one. And then finally, a back of the house boot camp. And what we're doing is we're exploring an alliance of local organizations and local restaurants that will follow a design training model for 5 to 10 students in their kitchen, and in a compressed 4 to 6 weeks of intensive training that's going to be done during slow and close times in these restaurants, really quickly producing hundreds of kitchen ready employees. So we are seeking funding to help scholarship all of these different programs. So as we reach out for support from all of you, just know that this is something we're helping organize and put forward for the community.
Awesome, Roger. That was a lot of information. So again, feel free to use the chat. We captured the 5 and bonus topics that Roger just outlined. So just to kind of recap, basically we're saying there's more jobs than there are available people, right? So we are seeking those individuals that are not your general target audience for hiring, that are already trying to find you. The differently abled, the housing insecure, the retirees that may want to return to the industry or return, to work and have flexible hours, right? So we're matching them with your available jobs. There are quite a few job boards that already exist out there. We get that. Even some of the chambers, including ours, have those individual job boards. So we're just trying to come together in a collective setting with FRLA and everything that exists out there to make that one-stop shop for them to find the jobs. And then what do you do with somebody who's never worked in hospitality before? Let's just get them trained up. So whether they're front of the house or they're at the back of the house, that you are not taking the precious time where you and your team are already stretched thin to even execute your daily operations. Send them over to boot camp. We'll get them all trained up and get them back to you. So those are some of the things that we're trying to do collectively. We're open to all kinds of new ideas. If you're seeing other needs in other places, we'll talk soon with David O'Neil about what's to be and done higher at that management level, but open to new ideas. So we're just here to help you try to address some of these challenges. Ultimately, we want to see your business be successful and our visitors have that great experience. So we're hopeful that can help address some of those things. All right. Chris, I saw you unmute. Did you have a comment?
I was just going to ask Roger again. Roger, when are we going to see the site? Because that's a lot of great things on there, and I know all of us need those things, and we're working. So, when is it going live for all of us?
September, maybe even a little bit earlier.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. Good deal. Thank you.
Help is right around the corner. That's excellent news. All right, now let's jump into a little bit. So one of those topics that Roger addressed was tech investments. How can we utilize technology to automate, right? There's a special balance here. We are a people business. Hospitality is about people connecting with people. However, there are some opportunities to integrate technology in a successful way, we believe, to make sure you're still meeting your customers' needs with your limited staff. So Roger and Miguel would like to jump in and tell you a little bit more.
Thank you. So, there's multiple ways that technology can now be used in the hospitality industry and can really produce efficiencies and effectiveness at a new level we've never seen before. So here's just a few of those categories, and we want people thinking about these categories as operators. So the first is operations. So there is restaurant profit management platforms that are out there now, and it connects the purchasing, the recipes, the inventory, the sales with the accounting to then help the operators understand and increase their profits. An example of a program that folks are using locally is Craftable. So really, when we're talking 3 to 5% profitability in the industry, if you can improve that, it makes a marked difference in everything you can do, from paying your employees to having profit at the end of the year. So for operations, restaurant profit management platforms. In the kitchen, for folks that haven't looked at those kitchen display systems now, the technology has advanced greatly. And that's really a digital order viewer that can contain features recipes, routing, meal prep pacing, capacity management, and more. And the KDS systems, as they're called, they can be POS specific or agnostic. So having those in the kitchen can really increase efficiencies and effectiveness. When we look at table side, gosh, there's a whole lot of stuff. I think prior to COVID, digital menus were like very, very rare, and then they became commonplace overnight. So even though printed menus have made a comeback post-COVID, many places are still employing the digital menus. It's much easier to update those with prices for menu prices for current cost increases, good fluctuations. There is some digital hesitancy, I want folks to know, though, for those menus in certain dining categories, fine dining being one of them. The other trend that's coming now is self-ordering. So I think the retail industry was way in front of us as an industry, where the self-checkouts, and now that's becoming something that's available to the hospitality industry, where folks can actually sit down and self-order from their table.
I think we lost you there again, Roger. Miguel, you want to jump in?
Yeah, I'll take over. So self-ordering we have, then we jump into self-paying, which obviously we're seeing solutions like Toast, point of sale, that even though we have all aspects of the front of house service, the very last piece allows you to actually take care of it yourself. And honestly, that's something we saw already in Europe a long time ago. I think it's very unique for Americans to give our credit card and hand it over to somebody, walk away for a couple of minutes and come back. So having something you can do table side is very simple, which goes back to mobile credit card swipers. Quick service, we're seeing a lot of kiosk ordering, and I'm seeing personally, not just here, but nationally, a lot of point of sale companies quickly pivoting to creating better kiosk solutions, which seems to be the route a lot of the restaurant groups are starting to head towards too. Then obviously automated cooking or beverage devices, whether it's a self-made pizza maker or smoothies. There's actually a drive-through drink, like a smoothie blending type company coming down the pipeline pretty soon, and the whole thing's automated. The machine will actually make the whatever combination you're looking for, which leads down to robots. It was being said, I think Steve talked about the fact that, you're seeing less and less room service or any kind of help with that. Well, a lot of New York hotels, saw one specifically in New York about 2 years ago. You order something from front desk, robots bring it to you, not necessarily human beings. So it's kind of unique and different, but obviously it saves on personnel. And this situation in respects to COVID, you have less interaction. And then obviously online ordering systems, which is our go-to bread and butter, especially since COVID. And then air purification systems, which in some areas they're required by law now. Obviously, it's not something here in Pinellas just yet, but it definitely does make a big difference. Just buyer beware, not everybody, not all systems are created equal. So that's kind of the I guess the list of everything that's on there. The big challenge comes in, and I guess what I would want to talk about a little bit is how do we implement all that and yet still remain the hospitality industry? Where it's the human connection, the human touch that we have to offer. And so a couple of tidbits that, we've done for the restaurants I interact with, and as well as, consult and just advise from the side, is the fact that you always have to remember that what your brand's about. And so technology is not meant to replace individuals per se, or make it, how can I make it more profitable, but surely by being enhancing. And so let me give you a first example. Back probably early 90s, we all encountered that customer service. You call for, say a company, and they put you through that phone tree of hitting a million different buttons to eventually get, a 0, 1, a 2, and you get more and more frustrated. And I found it interesting that's what they use for a customer service line. And so you're upset with a product, and then you call, and they make you even more upset as you get to it. And I think you have to look at technology the same way for a restaurant, for a hotel is it going to get in the way of the customer connecting, or is it going to enhance the process? Roger and I have talked about, there's certain solutions out there. There's a product called Tablee, which basically all it really does is there's a little puck on your table. And let's say you need your server. Maybe you realize you dropped your fork on the floor and you need a new fork, right? Not the restaurant's fault. That was your own clumsiness, but you need that server and they're busy. You just press the button. And what it does, it actually gives a little signal to their Fitbit or Apple Watch to that server saying, hey, table 44 needs you. And if the server can't get to it within, say 10 seconds, or at least respond, the manager is alerted. Point being is, here's technology where it allows you to get better customer service, what you actually need at that moment, and allows the employees to be able to focus on what they have to go focus on at a time. And we've got a couple of restaurants, we've done this for the past 6 months. And what we found out was we could expand the number of tables a front of house employee could handle. And yet the level of customer service actually went up, guest satisfaction went up during that time process. So I think that's an example of how using technology will actually enhance the experience. So it really comes down to is educating operators, saying, hey, how do we implement something? Don't just do it because it sounds good. Don't just do it because it sounds, oh, this is some unique way of doing things, or purely cost saving. Is more so, how is it going to enhance the experience, improve the product, or just overall better operations. And I think that's the part that I think that of education needs to be happening and talking a lot more. And then obviously the big piece behind it is, how do you finance all this stuff? And I think that's the big question operators are currently looking at, especially in light of the new Delta variant. The word I'm hearing a lot is, okay, what if we have to shut back down again? We're not sure there's another PPP. We're not sure there's another RFF, which the money ran out, obviously. And so that's the fear everyone has, is I'm afraid to invest in technologies. I need to hoard as much as I have in case something comes down the pipeline. And we know Florida is very different than, behaving different other states in respects to regulations and whatnot. But there's always the fear behind a lot of operators here locally as to what that looks like for them.
Excellent, Miguel. Thank you for jumping in. And Roger, just want to make sure that you didn't have any other comments to add on the technology side.
No, only that internet sometimes goes out, even if you're hardwired.
A little ironic to give a technology presentation as your internet's dropping out, but we all get it. We're going to roll with you there. Well, thank you both. I know Roger and Miguel have worked with a lot of clients, can give a lot of advice on just different products and different things out there. I will ask both of you, are there any examples of different partners in the community that are using these technologies that you think they're doing well, like that we could go just grab some lunch and check out see it implemented?
There's I'm partial to it. There's a new burger spot on Central that we designed in 2 different ways. First off, there's no cashiers, so the whole thing is kiosk based. I will be upfront, it's not the best solution just yet, so we're still searching for a more intuitive solution. I think that's where the technology still has a little bit of ways to go. But the reality is that it definitely saves tremendously for that specific business called Job Site Burgers, to save on personnel on the front side. What they're able to keep on customer service wise is an open kitchen. That means the people actually making the burger are able to interact with the people ordering at the same time if they have any questions, or just talk to people. In addition, technology wise, we actually use broilers that are on conveyor belt. So you're making your burger, from a technique point of view, really doesn't require much talent. I kind of joke, my daughters could probably make these burgers, because aside from stuffing it, they're putting conveyor belt, and the broiler itself times it just right. That way it cooks it perfectly by the time it comes out the other end. Again, another use of technology to help save some labor costs. You're not looking for skilled labor who knows how to use, how to cook properly and flat tops and whatnot. And so there's the 2 examples where we're able to look at, and we're able to shave off probably around 5 to 10% of labor costs a traditional similar type restaurant would do. And that definitely, the owner is looking to expand this product, this concept, and take it beyond. And he's excited that he started off in St. Pete, but he wants to blow it up and go everywhere else. But the whole concept, we designed it actually 2 years ago, pre-COVID, was with that mentality that we knew labor costs were going to be going up, as well as shortages on availability of labor. So we had to build a business model that didn't require as much on either side, both quantity as well as quantity.
Excellent. And then anybody using this, I think you pronounce it Tably?
Locally in Tampa, we have some. And then if you want to take a flight to New York or LA, I'd be happy to take you some places there and show you how it's done.
Sure. Okay, well, that's great. I mean, it's always interesting to see. I mean, I travel to Vegas quite often, and I've seen both the robot bartender as well as the robot on the housekeeping side. So some really interesting solutions there. So we really appreciate you presenting those and sharing those with us.
Of course.
Excellent. All right. So we've got a couple other partners on the call that I just wanted to give an opportunity to share with you in addition to the work that this kind of collaborative group is doing to address some of the concerns and needs that you all have. They're doing some work independently and in cooperation with us that I just want to bring to your attention. So David, would you and Miguel like to jump in and tell us a little bit about HLP?
I'm happy to. Thank you, Christina. And you're awesome on the one-liners today, keeping it light. First of all, my name's David O'Neill. I'm with USF, the College of Business. I run a leadership center called the Bishop Center for Ethical Leadership. And one thing I want you all to know is USF really recognizes its responsibility to support regional economic development. And in Pinellas County and Tampa Bay, tourism remains the heart and hospitality is the heartbeat of our economy. So we are committed to supporting the industry, and I really applaud the chambers and the destination marketing organizations who have kind of set the example for cooperation and collaboration. And I think we're certainly trying to do our part to follow suit with the other educational institutions that are part of the hospitality tree. HLP stands for Hospitality Leadership Program. It's really targeted at small business owners and general managers within hospitality. About 3 years ago, several industry operators approached the university and were describing the challenges facing the industry. Not much different than the challenges that Roger has articulated. I just think they've gotten worse, more severe. So we built a program in response to them, leveraging other industry operators, and Miguel happens to be the lead instructor for that. Roger was also instrumental in helping get this off the ground. We also relied on several leaders within the industry. Mike Harding comes to mind from Three Daughters, to help really inform the content and nature of the program. And so what we built was a 16-week training program that lasts about 5 hours a week, or consumes about 5 hours of the participants' time per week, fully remotely. Everything is applied, however. It's not a typical college class. And what Miguel walks these operators through is how they, as the leader, impact the loyalty of both their employees and their guests. So the leader, has a huge role to play in not just attracting talent, but retaining it. And with staffing being the current crisis facing the industry, I think that component of the course is really shining. There's also a need to create efficiencies within a business. So, we walk the participants through how to map those processes and how to have a plan for increasing profits by getting better at forecasting and marketing. And also, organizations, when you lose your frontline employees, that's one thing, but when you lose your managers and your leaders, that creates a whole nother degree of challenge. So I think the organizations that are recognizing the value of this kind of training to put their people into are helping them retain those people within their businesses. So that's the program we've built. It's for leaders, GMs, and hands-on owners in hospitality. Our next cohort starts August 30th. We're in the midst of a cohort now. We'll be continuing to offer it. We haven't scheduled the one after August, but there will be more. We've really tried to make the scheduling flexible to the industry's need. And I know, each particular area, businesses in each particular area have different high times of the year. So we're trying to be responsive in that way.
Excellent, David. Thank you so much. I've had a chance to see kind of the outline of the work that you guys do for that course, and it looks fascinating, and great testimonials, really good integration of the leadership from our community. So, and thank you for USF. I love the way that you phrase that, the responsibility towards the development of our community. So we appreciate the role that you play in that. And thank you for sharing.
You're welcome.
Get that your email address and the details over. We'll make sure to include that in just this follow-up email at the end for all of our participants so they know where to find you.
Yeah, that'd be great. And Miguel, did you have anything you wanted to add?
You're amazing. You're good spokesperson for me. it was said at the very beginning that the conversation is how do we get people into our industry? And Roger and I've gone back and forth on this on a weekly basis. And the reality is we have to create our industry as something that people want to come into. And I would say that historically we had an uphill battle, but we've gotten away with it. The media, and I'm talking about news, I'm talking about even Hollywood and whatnot, doesn't present, working at a hotel or a restaurant as something that's amazing, unless you're on Top Chef, where then all of a sudden you're some celebrity person. It's tough. And then throw in what happened during COVID, where our industry got hit the hardest. There's a lot of people who left because they just didn't see an opportunity to come back to work into anytime soon. And so our job as a leader is to create an environment where I want to come work there and I want to connect there and I want to be able to do it in a way that doesn't burn me out. And so that is the crutch of really what IHLP does, is we look to help you create something that's amazing, people want to be part of. And the same token, do it in a way that you don't burn yourself out as you go along. So I'm excited to be part of it and work with pretty much everyone at USF. I know Joe's on the call. A lot of things happen in the hospitality school as well that we're just trying to help out the industry across the board.
That's fantastic. Well, thank you to you both. And, I'm sure we all see it in our line of work, right? Just because you're good at your job and you continue to advance doesn't necessarily give you the qualifications to be a good leader in your role. So I know that there's a lot in that curriculum about that as well, so that we can create that sticky culture that keeps our employees around and makes it truly a career opportunity. So we're really appreciative for that. Next up is Danette. Danette, I'm not sure if you're on the call. I know we have a phone number I don't recognize, but she may not have been able to join us. So Danette is with the Florida Restaurant and Lodging Association. They are a partner with us in this collaborative. Fantastic set of resources. They are advocating for us in Tallahassee for the industry with our elected officials and all of the roles that are very important there. They do have a job board. And then I wanted to address, I believe Kelly was the one that made that comment recently. Yeah, Kelly Rodriguez offered a great suggestion for coordinating that food safety training that everyone needs. FRLA has an entire division dedicated to that. So I think that's a great piece of feedback that we'll carry back and take a look at this group for coordinating with RCS and the opportunities to get the food training, safety training that's needed for your employees, since that's required. So we want to thank Danette for her partnership. Just the last couple things here, and again, don't hesitate to use the Q&A box here at the end as we wrap up. I just wanted to give an opportunity for all of you, just a couple minutes here, if anybody has anything exciting going on in your business. I know, Josh, you're going to be opening up a new restaurant here pretty soon. A couple of you guys might have some really cool things happening in your corner of the community. Tell us what's going on.
Yeah, sorry, I'm yawning, been actually doing an all-nighter. Joys of trying to own a restaurant and build it yourself. Yeah, like the downtown block is actually about to be nearly 100% occupied. So Lucky Dill and the Old Garden are kind of like two of the last legs that needed the facelift to get it rocking. But I'm not sure about anyone else around downtown, but a lot of the owners on the block, and it doesn't matter if it's like the guys over from the McDidden side or Pete Boland over from, the 3rd Street side, or us down on Central, but between the tourism and the new people sort of like moving to town, we've actually seen like an increase in drama and sort of, situations event that sort of like require like the St. Pete Police Department's attention. But there's definitely not the same amount of, St. Pete Police Department presence on the block like we used to see. Like 2-3 years ago, it was not uncommon to see like a squad car parked, basically where the mill is, and, officers roaming around the blocks. And they actually had a system, or they sort of like trialed a program where there was like a team of like 6 or 8 officers that actually came and visited each business and had that rapport. Like we'd often see the guys come in and would give them free coffee or Cokes and get a rundown on what's going on in the city. But there's definitely not that same degree of presence, and it's to the point where 4 or 5 business owners are actually now getting off-duty police officers to come down and guard our streets, just because we don't want to, we don't want to be the Pulse nightclub from Orlando. We don't want to be that sort of, spa in Atlanta. Because as soon as that happens, it's game over for St. Pete. And we've been putting out the request, but right now I'm paying like $600 a night on a weekend, plus my own security. just to, have some police presence. You know what I mean? The guys from Poor Judgment, like they've got one too. I'm trying to encourage Rubies and Josh from $5 to sort of get his, sort of like presence out there. And, like in the last few months, there's been guns waved around, you know what I mean, on the streets. And thankfully it didn't happen in my venues, but it happened in, venues a little too close to home. And there was an incident about 3 weeks ago where police were present for a gentleman waving a gun around, and he didn't even get arrested. He just got in trouble. And I'm like, it's concerning, you know what I mean? And I definitely, love that we're talking about all this growth and love talking about, where it's all sort of evolving. But at the same time too, I don't want us to be like, so gung-ho and vision towards growth and, getting back to pre-COVID numbers and, focus on staff and energies and synergies and training, and then be like, wow, where's the protection? And I do know a lot of it is new faces that are visiting. So whether it was tourists or, the college spring break crowd or whatnot, but yeah, definitely would be curious if other venues around town, not just the downtown block, are seeing, an uptick in everything from, just unruling behavior to, aggression to even people like running out on checks. Like, it's crazy. Like the amount of times now that we're getting people ordering food and drinks and sitting in the outside seating that the city's been so nice to let us use, but they will intentionally be like, oh, can we get, 8 shots? And then this is after they've already had, dinner or drinks or whatnot. And then the second that they order the shots, they wait for the server to walk inside the door and they just book it. And it's happened, at least once or twice a week. We often also share a Facebook group. Sorry, I'm just downloading a lot right now. There's also an industry Facebook group that's screenshotting just maniacs going around town, just on rampages, kicking over furniture and, sort of getting all cracked out in back alleys and stuff. And they're like, hey, if you see this guy, don't put him, don't let him in. Hey, don't do this, don't do that. And it's police call, but we're 30, 40 minutes. We don't know if he's on Central Ave or Beach Drive now, you know what I mean? So yeah, just as a sort of heads up to everyone, I don't know what it's going to take, but I know I've been talking to Lois over at the St. Pete Police Department and someone else, and they're definitely applauding us for taking the steps to spend the money, but it's definitely a tough pill to swallow when you're the one, personally paying for it. And somewhere like the Oyster Bar doesn't even have a patron after 10 o'clock at night, yet, I'm still having to front just to make sure that the furniture's still there the next day and not thrown at a car passing by. But yeah, just heads up. But other than that, business has been consistent. It's been great. Food supply, it's a nightmare. Lobster, crab, don't even sort of, jump into that space right now. I don't know how all these Mr. and Mrs. Crabs are going so well, like freight trains. I'm like, I don't know where you're getting your crab, but they're doing something right. But yeah, excited for downtown. Plenty of cranes still in action, plenty of, construction and ground level work sort of going on. And, the city's looking good. So that's a good job all around.
Awesome, Josh. Well, thanks for giving the feedback. Chris, I see that you unmuted. Did you have a comment?
First of all, thank you, Josh, for that. I appreciate that. I wasn't aware that it had gotten that bad. I have had members tell me, I was putting it under kind of the conversation of consumer agitation, patients' mental health, that we're seeing a lot of customers that they are having problems with, for whatever reason. So, but I hadn't heard of the guns and stuff. So we're gonna make sure we're working just as you are with the police, but because I really love that you're paying for it. I just also don't think it's fair sometimes when we've identified this. And I agree with you that we all know mental health is a real issue right now. So more than ever, we should just have a presence of people. And I think that's what you guys are doing by investing in it. And I think our city should be aware of that too. And I just make sure we're all doing that. But I do believe it's a lot of mental health, man. We're just crazy as all get out right now, man.
Yep. Everybody's been locked up and inside. And I will share that we're seeing the same thing in North County. The Chamber's held a meeting about every 3 weeks or so with Clearwater Police and the mayor and city manager regarding some of the similar issues that we're seeing in North County. So not that that's supposed to bring you comfort necessarily, but just know that it is an issue that we're seeing countywide. And to your point, what that could potentially impact, how that could potentially impact the visitor experience and destination reputation should certainly be top of mind for sure. So we've seen some success with increased communication and things of that nature. Miguel?
Yeah, I was going to jump in real quick, and obviously, I living in St. Pete. Listen, I've had my cars broken into the last 3 times in the past 2 months at my house, which is pretty impressive. And the crazy part is nothing got taken. They just wanted to pop in, and the fact they can run around all 4 of my cars sitting in a driveway, which is fine. That being said, what Josh is describing is happening nationally, and so we're seeing it in every single major city. And I would say on our behalf here in Pinellas is looking at it. How do we get ahead of it? Because the communities that kind of let it just sit on Josh's hands to figure it out, eventually it just got too much. Josh is an amazing restaurateur. He's not a public safety expert. And I think that's the part that runs to a problem. So I think as a collective, in this group is bring it back and make sure we get ahead of it. And it's, some of it's mental health, some of it's, being cooped up in a house and want to get out. But there are some elements that's really changing, and part of the mentality has been, we're seeing in some of the bigger cities, whether it's Chicago, Minneapolis, New York, is the mentality that police presence is not going to do anything. And a lot of it could be potentially, due to last summer, expectation of they're not going to interfere. And so to Josh's point, that may already be happening. So I think giving feedback and asking of our elected officials to, hey, we need support, we need to help before this gets out of hand. One of my clients, they had to shut down because they were doing literally nightly drag racing in front of his restaurant with thousands of people racing, and nothing happened. And so eventually he did lose one place. And the other one on the verge of collapse because he couldn't, people avoided his restaurants, and his restaurants were destination type places. So people from the suburbs didn't want to come there. So it's one of those things I think we got to be, jump ahead. And then final point on Josh's point about price increase. Yeah, that's a top of another day, but it's getting to a point that it's almost unattainable. And so some of the things we're having to pay for. So anyways, appreciate the insight, Josh.
Sure. Excellent. All right. Does anybody else have any exciting news to share with the group? Otherwise, we're going to kind of wrap it up here. Great. Well, go ahead.
Sorry, I can't say whom or what, but I'll tell you what. There's a lot of national or restaurant groups in other parts of the country that are actively looking for spaces here, and we're doing a lot of lease negotiations and whatnot. And a lot of the conversation is just they're excited about what's happening in Pinellas County. They're excited, even though the red tide, they're excited about the beaches and the nature and the weather, and really the fact that we're business friendly overall. And so a lot of great things are happening, and I think they're coming down the pipeline. More challenges for local current operators because there's more competition, but nonetheless, we're still seen as a bright spot nationally compared to what we would be experiencing here locally.
Awesome, Miguel. Thank you for that. Let's leave it out on that positive note. You're absolutely right. We're still living in sunny Florida. We're still selling memories and the best destination in the world. And so let's just keep on doing what we all do best. Thank you for taking the time to join us today. Thank you for sharing your challenges. Our hope is that this collective can just help address some of those concerns, that we can help alleviate and let you get back to doing what you do best and serving our visitors with that warm hospitality. We will do a follow-up email and share with you. Each of the chambers of commerce on this call tend to have those in-person meetings and opportunities for tourism partner meetings and gatherings and different initiatives that they're doing individually in between these quarterly forums. So we have discussed and just encouraged to keep these quarterly forums to be virtual. Yes, we're in a people business, but you also got to get out and work your restaurants and serve your customers. We recognize that it's a long county to traverse sometimes. So we're going to keep these quarterly forums virtual. We're inviting you to give input and feedback for what you'd like to hear, the topics that you would like to see addressed in these meetings, but we will get that information to you. Before we wrap, Courtney, Chris, anybody from St. Pete have any other things you'd like to add?
I would, I don't know if Courtney does, I'll let her go next, but I first of all, just want to say thank you, Christina, for your facilitation today, Roger and Miguel for your content and your leadership in our hospitality industry right now. And I really do feel like we're coming together as a county. We are getting better at it every time, but Christina, I really believe your stick-to-itiveness is very helpful for all of our organizations. So I just wanted to call you out and say thank you very much.
Thank you for that, Chris. Courtney, anything else you'd like to add? Candace, you guys good?
No, I'd just like to thank you for leading us today and keeping the conversation flowing and making sure that we had a great time here today together. I don't know if you were going to mention, but I just wanted to remind everybody that our next meeting is October 5th. So if we missed anything today that is on your mind that you really want us to cover, please contact any one of us in the interim, and we'll make sure to get it covered.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Courtney. Yep, that was exactly how I was going to wrap up our time. And kudos to Courtney. She's been keeping this whole group kind of organized and emailing out all of the details. So we really appreciate all of your hard work. Any input or feedback or things that you would like to hear in the interim, please share those with us. We will make sure to address them. We really appreciate your time again today. And let's, again, go out and do what we do best. Let's sell those memories and make sure people have a great time in our community. So we appreciate you all. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you.